None of them were like overly floppy or overly hard. That's what she said. Hi everybody, I am super excited to be talking about the new Mildliner brush pens today. I will link in the cards up above my video on the regular Mildliners. They are my favorite highlighters. I use them in my bullet journal every single day. I have used them for at least 2 years now and I love them. And so when they said that they were coming out with brush pens, I was like, oh balls. Oh, it's on. I don't know for sure if they're available in the United States or not yet. Zebra says coming soon, but yet it says you can add them to cart. I bought these from Tokyo Pen Shop because they've been available in Japan for a little while now, and I ordered it from them, and they actually came within a couple of days because they're located, the Tokyo Pen Shop itself is located in the United States. They are $34.86 for the bundle of 15, which is all of the current colors, and they came with this like little pouch with the heart, whatevers, and I needed the pouch because the pouch that I use with my regular Mildliners is quite full. If they come out with another set, I may not be able to fit it in here. I may have to upgrade my pouch. So there are currently 5 sets of standard Mildliners. The brush pens, they have all of the colors from the original 3 sets, the cool, the warm, and the fluorescent. So those, we'll swatch all of them. You'll see the colors soon. But first I want to talk about the actual pens themselves. So first I said price on the Tokyo Pen Shop. They are $34.86 for a pack of 15, and you get free shipping if you have an order of $35 or more. On the Zebra site, they are $41.85 for a pack of 15. I think you can buy the 5 packs or you can buy a 10 pack. On Tokyo Pen Shop, you can buy them in singles. I haven't looked anywhere else to see where else they are, but I don't think they're on Amazon yet. This is what the pen looks like, and I'm going to grab out a regular Mildliner for comparison's sake. This is the same color. I think it is the mild blue-green. The regular Mildliner and the brush Mildliner. Here are the pens without their caps. The actual body of the pen is the same size with both of them, but because the brush tip is like at least twice as long as the chisel tip, the actual pen with the lid on is longer. But that's why. The bodies are the same size, they're the same size around, basically feel exactly the same. Cap is opaque for the chisel tip, and the cap is clear for the brush tip, so you can see the brush, I'm assuming. They are dual-ended. I know this blows the minds of a lot of people when it came to these guys, that there is actually a second tip on these. It's not just the chisel tip. But so this side has a brush, and then the other side has the fine point. Now, I remember when I did my Mildliner video, and I said that there was no way to figure out what colors these were because of all the writing being in Japanese, and some of you guys corrected me in the comments, and I am thankful for that. If you look right here, there is a initial that tells you what the color is. So this one has MBG, which means mild blue-green. They all start with mild. Another difference between the Mildliners and the Mildliner brush is that, and I had to pull out one of my newest ones because the other ones are so blunted down because I've used them so much. On the brush Mildliners, this is actually a super fine tip. So this is the tip that's on the brush pens, a super fine tip. On the regular Mildliners, the tip on the non-chiseled end is a fine tip. So that's the difference between them. You get a really fine writing tip with the brush Mildliners, and then you get a broader fine tip with the regular Mildliners, and I guess I'll show you. You can get a finer edge with the chisel tip if you put it on the tip of the chisel, and then this is the actual chisel. And then with the brush pen, you can get a heavy or a light just like any other brush pen. So those are kind of the difference. The nice part is if you have both the brush and the regular Mildliners, you actually will have a bunch of different options with the same ink. You'll be able to write super fine, fine, this other level of fine, the chisel, and the brush marker and everything it does. And it gives you a nice wide range of tip options for one color, which I think is really, really, really nice. I'm also kind of a stan for these, so don't mind me. Anyway, so those are the differences in the tips. But now what I really want to talk about is the brush tip. I know that's what you're here for. You want to hear about the brush tip. Well, I've used these, and I will tell you, some of the tips are a little bit stiffer than others. Now I will tell you, I really like the tip of these. It is firm. It reminds me of a Tombow dual brush pen. The tip, I think, is a little bit longer than a Tombow. Now, they're about the same size. So they're about the same size, but the Tombows are slightly more flexible. These guys have a little bit more stiffness, and because of that stiffness, I feel like you can get a little lighter touch or a little heavier touch. For me, at least, as a heavy-handed person, a little bit easier. but I find them to be very comfortable to practice with. They are not overly floppy like a Pigma Micron brush pen, or loose like a standard like bristle brush. These are the solid nib. They are nice and firm, and you can get several different looks out of them, and they're comfortable. They are comfortable to write with, especially as someone with a heavy hand. I will say some of them, like the pink I found, for me at least in my set, was a little bit more flexible, and like the green was a little bit less flexible, and I don't know if that's just the pens I have, but they weren't consistent for me when I started working with them. There was some variation in how none of them were like overly floppy or overly hard. That's what she said. There was a little bit of difference in between some of them. I would suggest, if you're going to use these, to take a couple seconds and just do a few drills, just like practice it out really quick to get used to that particular tip, because if you're working with like a whole bunch of different colors, it may throw you off a little bit if any of your brush pens are as like slightly inconsistent as mine are. But like I said, this is quickly now one of my favorite brush pens to play with. I don't know if it's taken the place of Tombows in my heart in terms of my bigger tipped brush pens, but it is definitely neck and neck with the Tombows in terms of comfort. I think the biggest difference for me between Tombow and Mildliners in terms of how much I like them is the difference in color. And I will also say I love the super fine tip about 1,000,000 times more than the bullet tip on the Tombows. And the bullet tip on the Tombows reminds me a lot more of the fine tip on the regular Mildliners. Now that I have talked about the brush tips, now it's time to look at how they react with water. So what I have discovered is that they can blend out with water, but you have to use them when they're really fresh. Like you can't do you have to work basically 2 colors at a time very quickly. For an example, we'll take this gray. And I was able to blend those together, and they look really nice doing that. But if you wait any longer than that, if you're writing like a word and you're trying to blend 2 colors together, you kind of need to go 1 letter at a time. Otherwise they dry really quickly. The one thing we found out when I was testing these with my patrons though, is that they actually blend really gorgeously with the Tombow colorless blender, which is ironic, because I've always found that the Tombow colorless blender does not blend very well for me with my Tombows. But it actually works pretty well with the Tombow colorless blender. So if you have a couple of these hanging around from different sets and you've never really used them because it's not really worked out for you, aka me, then now you might have a use for it. Like, it works really nicely. Look at that. Really nicely to blend these out. I like this a lot. So this actually gives me a good use for this pen, which is not something that I use very often because I prefer using water when I blend my Tombows. I will also say that this works. My patron Deb discovered it also works with the regular Mildliners as well. So you're welcome for all of you who have had these laying around and didn't know what to do with them because they didn't work as well for you as you would have hoped. Now, if I put water down first and then I put the brush into it, I can blend it out that way and have like a very, very, very light wash of color. But I actually had a lot more fun taking like an acrylic block, like this is just an acrylic stamping block, and coloring some of the colors onto it. Remember, these are highlighters, and they're Mildliners of all things. So they're very pale. You're not going to get super dark, but if you use them on the acrylic block, you can get a really pretty, like soft wash of color. So I would mess with them with water if you want to for like different effects. They're basically like they can interact the way a lot of the Tombows do, but you're going to get much less saturation, which could be frustrating for you if you really like saturated colors. But if you love like pale backgrounds, these are going to be fantastic in like a bullet journal or in your planner to like do a really lightly washed background. You could get a lot of fun out of these, especially mixing them with water. I will also say that I just love the look of these being layered in general, like not blending them, just layering them. And I just think that they're really pretty layered together. The other thing to remember is that these are somewhat inky. So when you lay them down, you're going to get that like kind of ombre effect where they're darker towards the top of a heavy stroke and lighter towards the bottom. You can see it there. It's not super pronounced. I've seen it much more pronounced with like the Crayola brush markers. It is there. They're not as even from top to bottom. I like that look, but it can get frustrating if you're looking for a nice, like, even, you have to go back and redo it, like color over it a bit. Now we're going to swatch them, and I'm going to do it in this Leuchtturm so that you can see how they bleed in the Leuchtturm. All right, so here are the 3 sets: the fluorescent colors, the cool colors, and the warm colors. In terms of my favorites, I love the cool colors quite a bit. They are not, like, this is the funny thing. Like, I hope they like that these do well, because they can then make the other 2 sets, the friendly colors and the bright colors. Those 2 packs, the newer packs, are my favorites of all the Mildliners, especially the newest pack, which I think is the Brights pack. It's got the teal, it's got the purple that I'm using in my pain tracker, and I love them. But these colors are all beautiful. Let's look at the bleed through. So as you can see here, they do shadow quite a bit in this paper, especially the darker colors. They all kind of ghost here, but the darker ones, the red, the brown, the magenta, the smoke blue, just one stroke is enough for them to bleed through a little bit. So I would be careful. I would imagine like layering these. Let's do 2 layers of one that's not. We'll do a darker one, the red, 1 layer, 2 layer, and then we'll do a lighter one, the pink, 1 layer, 2 layer. And notice both of those are really starting to bleed through. So I use an Archer and Olive. I'm not worried about that because the paper is so much thicker. But if you're using a Leuchtturm or one of these bullet journal styles that has a thinner paper, there is going to be some bleed through and shadowing. So just beware of that. I personally like these enough where I would be willing to glue pages together if I was using one of these journals to like be able to use them as much as I want to. But even if you do that, there is still going to be some shadowing and ghosting with the second page. But if that's something that's like a boner killer for you, then it's a boner killer for you. Overall though, I am a big fan of these, and I think my reason for like kind of being a huge fan of these is threefold. Here are the 3 reasons that I love these, even with the bleed through in this kind of paper and the shadowing, and even with my favorite colors not being included yet. The first reason is that the tip is so comfortable for me as a heavy-handed person. It is easy to control. It's firm enough to get like a nice thinner downstroke, whereas it's still flexible enough to get a thicker one so you can get some variance, but still feel like you've got control over it. Secondly, I love Mildliner colors in general, and I love the fact that these pens offer you 2 new tip styles to go with the ones I already have, so this doesn't feel redundant even though they're the same colors. I love that, and I wish that I could get that in other lines of brush markers where I love the colors. And then the third reason is the colors. I love the paleness of the Mildliners. They suit my style. That's why I've used them for as long as I have, and having more ways to use them is just exciting for me. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on the brush Mildliners. If there's something you're going to be picking up, if you like if you don't get the hype of the Mildliners in general, let me know. And I'd love to know any pens you'd like me to take a look at. I'm not doing quite as many pen reviews as I was doing before this last Plan As You Go. I'll be interspersing them with other reviews to be able to try some different things out, but I will still be doing pen reviews, and there will be a brush pen Thunderdome probably later in the summer. So let me know in the comments below pens you'd like me to take a look at. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video.